Ask him about trees, and Bob Went might muse about an old oak's stature and beauty. But he also has a simpler reason for loving trees.
Number one, human beings breathe in oxygen and they breathe out carbon dioxide. Trees do just the opposite. They breathe in carbon dioxide and they produce oxygen. So obviously if we had no trees, we would die also.
Bob and his wife Kathy realize they're not the first to live and breathe here. Their family has found thousands of arrowheads and other stone tools over the years, and dotting the wooded landscape, small earthworks, more commonly known as Indian mounds. 17 in all, each a quiet testament to an ancient heritage here near the banks of Brandywine Creek in Greenfield. Bob can only guess what natives might have called this place, but in more recent times, locals have called it the Lost 40. Bob says the tale of a family's 160 acres and the 40 acres bequeathed to the proverbial black sheep of the family and the family feud that resulted is how the Lost 40 got its name. Bob emphasizes that he's not the black sheep. He just couldn't resist keeping the name after he bought the land.
And in fact, at the time we bought this property, the same family still owned it, and one side still would not talk to the other side over the dispute over how the land was divided 100 years ago.
He purchased the land because he wanted to try his hand at farming. But you won't find corn, soybeans, hogs, or cattle here. What you do find are trees.
We didn't feel that we were interested in corn and soybean farming because it just rubs me the wrong way to take subsidies from our federal government. So we wanted a way to make a living farming where we did not have to depend on the taxpayer at all for any portion of our income. And I'm glad to say that to this point we never have and do not intend to. The real interest was in hardwood trees and forestry, but yet I knew that with a crop that took 80 to 120 years to make a profit, that we could make a living with hardwood trees. So we looked into Christmas trees and nursery stock.
It's a lot of fun at Christmas, selling trees to families. Everybody's in a good humor. Everybody's happy and cheerful, and other businesses, I think, you know, you hit people on off days, but when they come and get a Christmas tree, generally they're all happy, even if it's raining. They'll come in the rain, they'll come in the snow, they'll come when it's cold, and they just all have a good time.
Interspersed with many of the Christmas trees are a variety of hardwood saplings. As the Christmas trees are sold, the Wents plant a hardwood here and there. By the time they retire, they say they will have replanted a small forest. And while many of the trees here may eventually be sold, Bob and Kathy hope others will remain forever. The 200 to 300-year-old oaks which rise majestically from their land have no real commercial value, but the Wents value them simply for their magnificence.
And just the fact that trees that size are scarce makes them valuable. Just a nice thing to look at and ponder on.
And although a state archaeologist has expressed an interest in excavating the Indian mounds, Bob and his family are satisfied just to leave them well enough alone.
And we have several reasons. One, we just like the aesthetics of the woods and we don't want it disturbed. Two, there are very, very few Indian mounds that exist in an unmolested state at this time. I think if and when I die and I'm buried, I don't know if I would ever want anybody to excavate my burial site, whether it was 1,000 years or 5,000 years from now.
With the growth cycle of trees being what it is, Bob likes to joke that he'll be a rich man in 140 years. He's replanted a swamp in cypress trees, but it will be decades before they'll be ready for harvest. For now, the seasonal sale of Christmas trees provides a good living, but Bob's long-range goal is to leave something for future generations.
The trees that we planted will be for the next generation, whether they'll be for my children or someone else's children, I don't know, but you can bet that if you came back here in 80 years, somebody would be awful glad that I planted these trees. It makes you feel good, the same reason you give presents at Christmas. Somebody's going to get a Christmas present 80 years from now. It just makes me feel good.